And Happy New Year to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It seems like just yesterday we were here doing the same thing, so it's so great to have you back. My name is Jamie Woody. I'm the Vice President for Student Life, and I am joined by my esteemed colleagues and panelists tonight. Julie Calley is here. She's the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs and can answer any questions you might have about anything academics. And we are also joined by Glenn Schwab, who is our Director of Intercollegiate Athletics. I just want to take 1 second and talk about Glenn. He doesn't know that I'm going to do this. But 1 year ago, Glenn assumed this role, January of 2020. And if we can all just imagine what his life has been like since then, if he knew then what he knows now, would he have taken this job? I think that's the million-dollar question. So Glenn is here and can certainly answer any questions you might have about all things athletics and anything else. And of course, we are joined by President Laura Scandera-Trombley. She has also been here for, 6 months now? And she's still here through all of this as well. We are so grateful to have you here. President Trombley is going to provide us just with a few opening comments, and then we're going to jump right into the questions. Just a reminder, down at the bottom of your window, you'll have a Q&A box, and you're welcome to populate that. Once President Trombley makes her comments, we will get rolling and get to as many questions as we can. Without further ado, President of Southwestern University, Laura Scandera-Trombley.
Hello, everyone, and I'm really glad that you could join us this evening. Welcome to 2021. Certainly, my first 6 months here have been eventful, but I have been blessed to work with extraordinary staff, faculty, and of course, your students. And I have come to know many of the parents here at Southwestern, and I am so glad to be part of the community. We are now about to embark upon our spring semester in our 180th year. And we have done a great deal over the holidays to make sure that first, we have a healthy and safe environment for all of our students, that our student athletes are going to have adequate time in terms of their training preparation, that we have an exciting competitive season prepared for them for the spring semester, and that we are going to be looking very, very closely at all of the different kinds of safety measures that we will need to make sure that our students stay safe. So first, I want to just comment on safety. In regards to COVID, we have been working very, very closely with our 2 athletics conferences, and I also want to shout out to Glenn and thank him for everything that he has done in working with all of our different institutions who are part of our 2 conferences. And we have come up with a very stringent testing policy in conjunction with NCAA standards. What we are also going to be doing is introducing antigen testing for athletes while they are in competitive play. Everything we are doing is to first ensure the safety and well-being of your student, and also to ensure that we are going to be able to have a competitive season for all of our teams. Also, we've had a long conversation with our Health and Safety Committee here on campus that consists of faculty, staff, and administrators. And I have asked Glenn to work with coaches and our student athletes to increase their training times. It is incredibly important that in addition to the safety measures that we are taking regarding COVID, that we also make sure that our student athletes have adequate training preparation so that they can not only just go and compete, but that they can be successful and safe on the playing field. We are also now looking at what is going to be a very intense and very intricate system for the spring semester so that we can run all of our athletics in the course of one semester, something that the university has never done before in its entire history. We are running fall, winter, and spring sports. And for that, I have to thank all of the coaches and in particular Glenn for figuring out just how we're going to do this. Now, when it comes to non-competitive play or non-conference play rather, The spring semester sports are unaffected by this, except when the institutions that we were going to be competing against have canceled with us. When it comes to our fall and winter sports, unfortunately, because of the tightness of the spring schedule and also because of the restrictions that we're facing in trying to run all of our sports during such a specific time period, we do have staffing and facilities limitations. And we also want to make sure that because of the tightness of the schedule, we are giving our student athletes enough time in between games so that they can rest, train, and prepare for their next competition. This is something that we have never done before. This is something that we are determined to do. And we also understand that this isn't just about us and our willingness to field our teams and to enjoy the great competition that our student athletes are going to have. It is also about working collaboratively with all of the other teams within our conference and making sure that they are following the guidelines as set forth by the athletic directors and the presidents. And so there are a lot of pieces that need to come together so that we can have an enjoyable and successful season. Now, part of the details that will go into this is, as I believe you all know, we have a mask requirement here at the university. And for all of the visiting teams, they have been asked very nicely to respect that, and they will all be masked while they are here. Also, because we are trying to keep our university as close to a zero positivity rate as possible, we are not allowing guests or audiences to attend the games. And that includes family members. And I know that this is extremely disappointing for many of you, for students as well as parents and friends. However, safety is absolutely paramount because right now, as I'm sure you're aware, we are in the midst of a pandemic that has worsened since August. It is now at its highest level than ever before. And this means that we have to not just continue the stringent safety measures that we started at the beginning of the fall semester, but in some areas, particularly with the additional testing that we're going to be doing, we have to increase our ability to make sure that students are protected to the best of our ability. However, we are going to be streaming the games. And so you can cheer on your student athletes as you watch them on your computer screens. Or if you're very clever, then possibly even on your television screens, an ability that I do not possess, but I'm sure that many of you do. And if you do think that when home games are being played on the Southwestern University campus and are concerned that you're not going to have anyone in the stands rooting for our students, I'll be there, as well as Glenn. We are going to be the most enthusiastic, screaming, jumping up and down, cheering squad any team has ever seen before. I love athletics. I love seeing competitive play. And I want to, again, thank the coaches for all of their work and all of their leadership that they have put into making this spring season take place. And so that's where we really need to just talk for a moment about the importance of the role that students are going to be playing in the success of this spring semester. It all depends upon our empathy for each other, our willingness to complete, and our drive to see this through to the very last game where hopefully we will be champions once again. And that means that you are going to be very careful, you are going to be taking care of yourselves, and you are going to be taking care of the other people on your team. You will be, in effect, thinking in terms of a pod. You will not be going off campus, you will not be going to the market, restaurants, you will be as safe as possible. If you are living off campus, I want you to wake up in the morning, eat your oatmeal, and then drive immediately to campus. When you're done with practice, go home. repeat for about 4 months, and then we're going to be good. So this is a leadership moment, it's a character moment, and it's a competitive moment. So by us coming together, working together, we're going to be able to succeed under the most difficult circumstances. And I'm very glad that I'm joined this evening by Glenn, as well as by Jamie and Julie. And we're here to answer any and all of the questions that you might have for us. We've spent a lot of time getting ready. We are glad that we have had the experience of last semester. We will not have to be doing everything for the first time as we did last semester. We are much, much better prepared. And also we have a record of success in managing the pandemic, which is going to come in and be very, very important for us as we move through the spring semester. And so with that, I am so glad that you could join us. I saw students moving in over the course of the weekend, and I'm really happy that I am not the only person living on campus anymore, that I have some neighbors. And every Friday morning, I will be resuming my campus walks where I'm going to be baking the night before. And so if there are any student athletes who don't have practice at that time, 7:30, front door of the president's house, let's take a walk and then have some muffins. So with that, let's begin the questions, and I look forward to getting lots and lots from you.
Thank you very much, President Trombley. Do you have to walk, or could I just show up for the muffins? I'd be down for that. All right, just a reminder, the Q&A box is at the bottom of your screen, and we already have some questions. So Glenn, we're gonna jump right in if you are ready. Let's talk about streaming for a moment. We have a few questions about streaming. Will it be all sports? Does it apply to swimming as well? Will the quality be better than in previous years? Will we have a decent announcer? Let's start with those questions.
Yes, the great news is the answer is yes. We will be streaming all of our competitions, and we are looking to stream swimming as well. So that will be happening. It better be better. However, we do have some issues sometimes with IT, but it will be free. We have actually started contracting for basketball. We've contracted with SHN, which has done our football games over the past few years. We're paying for them to actually broadcast and to do the entire announcing. So we think it's going to be a great product. We're looking to do that for other sports as well moving forward in the spring. But there will be no cost to anyone who wants to watch that. You'll be able to go to the schedules on the website, and there'll be an embedded link to each of those broadcasts. So all you'll do is click on that, and you'll be able to watch the games from there. So I think I caught all of those.
I think you did as well. You even preempted some of them. So great job with that. All right, Glenn, we're going to stick with you. Will the lack of spectators include fall sports in 2021?
Not at this moment. And to be quite honest, we think we're going to be revisiting, the SCAC will be revisiting the spectator policy each month. If things get better towards the end of the spring seasons, there might be a possibility to allow people to come later. But we're starting with no fans for the entire conference, but we have not talked at all about the fall semester for next year. So we're hopeful.
What about away games? Do all schools in our conference have the same no parent or no guest attendance policy?
The answer is yes for the SCAC. All of those conferences that we have all agreed. And with the America Southwest Conference, anyone who's in the SCAC, we have all agreed that we will continue that for football. However, I believe that really it'll be TLU and Southwestern are the only two allowing no fans at football games. So full disclosure.
Thank you. Will we be able to have access to the videos of the game to view or download in the event we're not able to see them live?
Yes, all of our games are archived, so you should be able to see up to a year ago. So we should be able to, you should be able to get to those anytime after we have played them. Usually it takes about 3 hours to get those back uploaded and once to get it archived, so it does take a little time.
And just one more time, will the away games be streamed, and is there a fee?
So the conference office, we made an agreement across the conference that no one would charge this year for streaming. And we did ask everyone to make the best effort policy to stream as many competitions as they could. And Again, I can't promise swimming will be broadcast when we're away. However, I do know that most sports will be broadcast.
And a reminder, no fee for that. How do we eat on road trips if we can't go out? Will the university be paying for it? We probably can't afford delivery for every meal.
And yes, we'll be getting things to go. We will be having delivery. There are going to be additional costs this year for us to travel. So we know that's coming, but we have been putting things in place. My coaches know what we're going to be doing. So I feel very confident that we'll still be well fed and taken care of when we're on the road.
So how can UT figure out how to safely get 25% in their football stadium, but we can't figure out how to socially distance 200 fans max?
And to be quite honest with you, it's about choice. We have chosen to take this route for safety purposes. UT has a revenue stream that they're looking for. They have a booster base that they're trying to appeal to, and they have things that they have to do. We have chosen to take the route that is really taking the least amount of risk, and we're here to protect. We wanted to give our student athletes the best experience possible, and to add the spectator moment, we don't have game day workers. We don't have people in attendance to make sure that we have people physically distanced. We don't have the manpower for all of these spring sports, fall sports, winter sports on top of each other to ensure that we have safety and things are being met. So the SCAC decided, with all those complications and things we don't have in place, we're not in a position to safely allow anyone to come to our campus and to go wherever they want to go and come and go and move. It's just too hard to keep people where they need to be.
Beautifully answered, Glenn. Thank you for that. So when we do have changes in attendance or any other policies, how will that be communicated so parents are aware of what's happening with attendance and other factors?
We'll be sending out an email to all the parents. If we decide to allow spectators, I'll be quite honest, the way the athletic directors of our conferences talked about it, we will first allow students from our own campus to have the opportunity. And if we feel that is safe, then we'll start possibly with parents. We don't think we'll ever get to a point where we'll allow any just general person to come. It will be by a pass, and we'll send you an email as a parent will be allowed to come. So that's how I'll look for this spring.
And Glenn, just a little bit more about what we've done to bolster the streaming service that maybe hasn't been super duper great in the past.
So yes, IT has come over and they've actually looked at each of our hookups and the lines that have been run to. We've actually found water in one of the cables in the conduit. They actually worked on that. They fixed it. We've tested it. We've repeatedly tested it. So I think we're in a much better place this time. The other thing is SHN has a broadcasting box. And so we have actually purchased one of those, and we're going to be renting those at each one of our venues when we're doing our own broadcasting, which is something we've never done in the past. So our equipment will even be better.
Very nice. And there's some sadness that people can't attend, but there is appreciation for what we're doing. So I want to make sure and shout that out as well. We are moving right into the final competition now. When will the final competition schedules be completed?
So probably 80% of our competition schedules are online already. A few spring sports are having some changes, but I do believe all of our fall sports and winter sports are up now. But a few sports in the spring, or we still have a couple of tweaks happening because of some changes to the way that people were playing have asked us to change a couple of things. So there's a few changes still coming, but really there were 90% there.
Glenn, you might need to take a sip of water because this is the Glenn show right now, just so you know. Let's talk for a moment, back to streaming. What about golf? First, will there be spectators allowed with golf? And second, will golf be streamed? And if so, how will that work?
So we actually started streaming golf for the SCAC. I think it was actually 7 years ago. Southwestern purchased a drone, and we actually watched people tee off, and then we set up a camera in the putting greens. So we're looking at anything we're hosting, and the conference office is looking at least having a couple of holes where you can see your son and daughter tee off and possibly where they're putting. So we're hoping to have a few different selections, but we are looking to try to at least broadcast part of the golf event.
And do we know about spectators for golf? Same thing, no spectators?
It's a unique situation because all of our golf competitions are off campus, and I cannot tell someone if they're at the golf course and the golf course allows people to walk on it or whatever. I'm not sure, but we're going to have to talk to each course and make a decision based on the course. But I do know that for the conference tournament, they were talking about there could be a possibility that we're going to turn you away if you come to the front gate, that we won't allow you to come in. So.
Okay, I think we're leaving streaming for a moment, and now we're going to jump into COVID. Where are COVID test results loaded?
And I believe that is actually, are you talking about coming back to campus? I guess I need clarification. But if we're talking about back to campus, it is actually at COVID. I can't remember now, I'm forgetting. COVID, I'll come back to that. I'll have that in a second. But I will say this is that if you send an email to Glenn Schwab, that's schwabg@Southwestern, I have uploaded as many as I can, and I will do it tonight. So if you're trying to be back here tomorrow, send it to me. I will load it up for you tonight, and we will get you an email that says that we have received it and that you're free to move in. So I'm working on that. I actually have about 20 emails from some of you guys right now, but I won't be able to clear you until I get off this webinar. So.
Come on, Glenn. Multitask. What are you doing in there? What about senior night? Can we be there when it's senior night? And what will be done to honor seniors?
That is the toughest question for me to have to answer. And quite honestly, we have talked about this, but we can't allow spectators. But we as an athletic department is trying to figure out a way that we can honor our seniors and have their parents present for that. And we haven't come to an answer yet, but we are working on that because it breaks my heart not to have parents to be present at senior night for their students. And I'm sorry, but we're working on it.
Positivity with COVID. If my son has had COVID and recovered from it, does he have to take a COVID test for the pre-arrival testing?
The answer is no. All they have to do is the same thing as if you had a negative test. If you actually will send us a copy of the positive test with their date and their name on that, so we know exactly what date it is, you have 90 days. You will not have to need to be tested for up to 90 days after a positive test and you have recovered. So no. And you can send that to me as well. So.
And just so the audience knows, I'm not posting that question into the answered column because it has the person's name and I want to protect their privacy, just so you know that I'm being transparent. Glenn, how many athletes have tested positive for the virus thus far? How many hospitalizations have you tabulated? And what science backs the decisions?
So I believe the number's changing because while on campus, before we left campus, we had in number, I believe, 32 positives before we left fall athletics. We've had more over the Christmas break, but I don't have that final number. We've had 0 hospitalizations thus far, and I'm very thankful for that, trust me. And the science behind our decisions it's very simple. I sent an email to my staff today, and I know that college-age students make up 1% of people being hospitalized and having serious complications. But I'm sorry, if it's my son's that 1%, if it's your son is that 1%, I want to be making decisions to protect that 1%. And that's what we want to do as a conference. That's what we want to do as an institution. And I know that doesn't make people happy, but I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. How often are student athletes going to be tested?
We are going to be testing weekly for sure. And we, as President Trombley spoke, we're actually looking to do that, and we're going to start antigen. So that's a PCR test. And for the in-state competitions, we'll be testing on Wednesday afternoons, and each of the student athletes will be tested so they can compete on Friday and Saturday. However, we're looking to do antigen testing more on a regular basis, and that may be daily, it may be 3 times a week, it may be 2 more times a week, but we're looking at doing multiple times per week. But until I get a contract with a local company to do that, I can't give you the exact number.
Take a drink of water. I'm going to speak slowly so you have time to drink. How will the process of quarantining happen? If one member of a team tests positive, will the whole team have to quarantine?
And the answer is not quarantine. When we have a positive test, we're going to be following in-state protocols where we will shut a team down. We will contact all the student athletes and ask them not to move about, to pause, and then we will start doing contact tracing. And I kind of call it a reverse contact tracing. We assume everyone is positive until we can actually decide who actually was a true contact and who wasn't. And as soon as we can rule that someone is not a full contact, we will contact that individual. We will allow them to start moving about and going forward. If they are deemed a contact, then they will go into quarantine, and that will be a 14-day quarantine period for anyone who was a close contact to a positive situation. We will be videotaping our practices and games. If there's a positive, we will be going back to the videos and watching those and actually looking to see who were engaging and how much engagement there was to deem if it was a close contact or not. So it may take us time to get through that process. A smaller team, we may be able to get the answer in 2 to 4 hours, but a larger team may take us 2 days to come out with who actually is safe to move about again.
And one thing we are going to do this semester, we did not do this last semester, we are going to find a plan and create a protocol for students who are in quarantine and isolation to be able to go outside, breathe some fresh air, collect some vitamin D, and just take a moment. They will be able to exercise a bit outside if they're in the mood to do that or want to do that, but at least be able to get outside and feel the Texas sun on their face for just a few moments. We'll roll that protocol out as soon as we have students in quarantine and isolation. Glenn, what about cheerleaders? Are we going to be allowing them to perform at games?
So the in-state came out with a policy and a best practices asking us not to allow any cheerleaders or band members to be present at events right now. And so we're following that best practices idea from the NCAA.
A little bit more detail on the streaming. Will there be audio and or play-by-play during the games?
The answer is yes for most of the games. There could be a couple of games because we will have at some moments, I think at one time we may have 3 or 4 games happening at the exact same time, and I may not have enough announcers. So we may have to live stream 1 or 2 games where there's no audio. But we are going to be trying to inlay scores and times so that you'll be able to at least see what the score is and how much time is on the clock. So we're going to do our best to have broadcasters for each and every competition, but there may be 1 or 2 that doesn't have that.
So this might be a President Trombley and Glenn tag team. Will students at some point be required to have taken the COVID vaccine in order to attend and participate?
As soon as the COVID vaccine is available for students, and I expect that that likely won't be until the semester is over, we will be requiring that students be vaccinated prior to their return on campus. We already do require vaccinations, and that will be added to the list. If by some chance the vaccine becomes available while students are still here, we will do everything in our power to get vaccine into our students as quickly as we possibly can. And the institution would be sponsoring that while the semester is still taking place. However, I don't expect that our students are going to be candidates for the vaccine because of the lengthy time that the rollout is taking. It's very staged. until most likely this summer.
Glenn, one more clarification. Non-conference games, will they be streamed at no cost?
If they're at our place, the answer is yes. I cannot guarantee you our non-conference competitions that are out of our region and out of, I do know the ASC has also made the commitment to stream everything, but when we travel up to Wisconsin, Illinois, I cannot guarantee you what they're doing. We did not have that as part of our contract.
And regarding spectators, not even students from Southwestern can attend our games. Is that correct?
That is correct. At this moment in time, no spectators are allowed.
I would rather my parents be the cheerleaders and the faculty manage the crowd and safety measures, masks, distancing, etc. Is this not possible? It sounded to me like the manpower to ensure that would be at games anyway.
The manpower at games is going to be we're going to be limited to only our game day workers who will actually be the people at the scorers table, statisticians, people supporting our teams. After that, we're talking about one or two people who might be there just in case a fight breaks out between two teams. I mean, we are limiting the number of people allowed in. The SCAC is limiting the number of people who may travel on the travel roster, as well as the number of people you can bring for the entire group that you're allowed to bring into the building. So we are limiting that across the board.
Glenn, with the shortened schedule, do students maintain an extra season of NCAA eligibility?
Yes, for the fall seasons and the winter seasons, the NCAA has granted one more year of eligibility. That is not the case for spring sports.
This is probably going to be a tag team again for President Trombley and Glenn. Is there any specific criteria to be met that would cancel the season or begin to allow spectators? Is there a panel that makes this type of decision?
What has been happening to date is we really have multiple meetings of athletic directors who come together and discuss these difficult policy issues. And the presidents have also been meeting and have met on occasion with the athletic directors. And so any change that we would be making would be done in collaboration with our partners. And all of the discussions that I've had with presidents to date who were in our conferences, these are conversations that are extremely thoughtful, that have been long in duration. All of the presidents understand how important athletics is for their community and for their student athletes. And that has been the process thus far, and that is the process that I expect we will continue to have. And if there are major changes that we would be implementing during the course of the spring semester, we would make sure that as soon as a decision is made, is that we would push it out to our students and to parents via our webpage, social media, emails. We would want everyone to be informed as quickly as possible.
And I would agree with that statement. I do know for a fact, I got 2 emails today from athletic directors making the comment that our school has made the official decision. We will not allow spectators, no matter what, all spring semester, no matter what the SCAC decides. So that came out today. So I know there's a lot of schools with a lot of trepidation about moving forward with spectators. So I share that, but we are constantly talking about that. We meet weekly, and now the presidents are meeting very regularly, and we're feeding things up to them. They're sharing information with us, and we're all working together, but safety is our #1 item that we're talking about.
Glenn, can you talk a little bit about the the championship conference swim meets? I don't know what the rest of the question is.
Yes, so we will be having this, right now we're still scheduled to have the swimming championships down in San Antonio. I do know that the facility has some requirements and restrictions that we were not aware of. We just found that out today. And so I know we're trying to work through those as we speak. But if you're wanting to know, no, there will be no spectators. I know that will not be allowed. And they're limiting the number of people we can actually have in the auditorium. But we will be broadcasting. We have contracted with the same people who broadcasted for the last, I think it's been 8 years, for the SAC Championship swimming event. So they will be broadcasting again this year. So everyone will be able to watch it, and they do an outstanding job. So I'm very excited about that.
Will SHN do away football games?
We actually have reached out to our 2 away football opponents, asking if they will give us grant permission for us to go. We are volunteering to have them sit outside on the visitors' bleachers and broadcast if we can't be in the press box. But SHN is willing to do it if they're allowing us to come in to do it. So we're hopeful that that will happen.
Glenn, let's just revisit testing one more time. Talk about COVID testing, the antibody testing for athletes, the process, procedure, number of times, and what the threshold for positive testing among athletes will be.
Yes, so it's actually going to be our first line of defense is going to be once a week on Wednesdays. We'll be doing a PCR test. And that is just really the gold standard for testing with COVID. And so we think that's really what we need to do. And that's what the NSA recommends. When we talk about antigen testing, it's a little bit lesser sensitivity wise. So therefore it doesn't give us nearly as long a protection. Typically maybe 8 to 12 hours of protection. It doesn't provide the 2 or 3 day of protection that the PCR test can give us. And when we say that, we're talking about once you're actually contagious. So if we can know someone's positive before they're contagious by 2 or 3 days, that keeps us safer. So antigen testing requires us to do it more frequently because we're only getting 1 day of protection. So we really do need to be doing it regularly. So that's why if we're doing PCR on Wednesdays, we may be looking to be doing that antigen on Friday, maybe on Monday, so that we have the protection throughout the entire week. And that's why we're trying to focus on that. So the threshold for positive is actually not amongst me. And I'm not sure if you're asking that question about testing or if you're actually talking about the threshold for when someone is pulled from practice. So if you would send that question again to clarify how you want to discuss the threshold portion of that, that would be very helpful.
So let's talk about baseball for a minute. Does the no guest rule apply to baseball and the other schools that we play? Baseball is played outside. Players are 60 feet apart unless they're batting. Will players be required to wear masks?
So spectators will not be present at baseball games. And part of our issue with baseball is our dugouts are so small. I have a roster of 50 plus baseball players. And when we're at home, I want them all to be present for that. We're going to have them lined up outside dugouts. We're going to have them possibly in the fans in the stands where the fans would normally be. And us to mix the players and the fans would just make it even harder. But we want the students to be as close to their coach as possible. So for me to have athletes all the way down the sideline and in the outfield so that we can have spectators, it's not fair to the student athletes who need to be able to be around their coach and hear what their coach is saying. So we're going to be looking to keep our students as close to the dugout as we can, but yet physically distanced. And so that's where all the schools are talking for the outdoor sports. Baseball is our hardest one to have spectators because we need our players to be outside the dugout. And that's the same thing for softball. So that's one of the issues we have with baseball.
Even though parents aren't going to be present, are we still celebrating seniors?
The answer is yes. We have still scheduled our senior days. We'll still be honoring them. And I'll be honest, we had some seniors who graduated this past December, and teams did have little going away gatherings, but again, outside, but they actually honored them as the senior of the team because I still think that's important. And we will be doing that, even if not. The thing that we are looking and talking about doing is trying to broadcast those senior events. Normally our broadcast would not start till the game time. We would try to broadcast all of our senior nights and our senior days so that if you're not present, you'll be able to watch it and you'll have the recording that you'll be able to keep forever. So we are looking to do that.
Thank you for that. And I want to acknowledge that we have gotten a couple of accolades about how we're handling things, and we have gotten some disappointment voiced. And I want to make sure that we honor that disappointment as well. Not everyone is appreciative of how you're not allowing fans. We hear you. We all completely agree. Thank you for that feedback. What would occur at Southwestern if a COVID-19 vaccine was widely distributed during the semester?
We would make it immediately available. However, before I start trying to invent what a process would be before it's a reality, I would need to know more about the reality, because what we have found as we have made our way through the last 6 months is that we get a lot of information. Much of it is contradictory. We see a lot of shifting. We have seen the CDC coming out with one position, that it changes, then it goes back to another position. So right now we are not planning, and nothing that I have seen would indicate that a vaccine would be available by February or by March that our students could have. If it did by some chance become available, what we would do is we would look at this very carefully. We would come up with a very coordinated plan, and we would then move towards implementing it. But I can't speak in any more greater detail because there are too many unknowns. Also, let me say this. If there are underlying health factors where the student and their parents believe that there should be an exception made, then that is a conversation that we would also take place. And here I'm not talking about the spring semester, I'm talking about moving forward. But to say anything that is definitive right now, with so much of it yet to still be determined, particularly as far as timing goes, I can tell you that the health experts that I've spoken to have all, without exception, told me that healthy 18-year-olds will be among the very last to be receiving the vaccine. And exactly how long that is going to take right now, what I'm hearing is very likely summer. And I'm hoping that it will be early summer. So then come fall, we will be able to come back to the kind of residential liberal arts experience that all of our students, and I know what their parents, have hoped for, and that's the reason why you're here.
Thank you, President Trombley. Glenn, what if someone starts showing COVID symptoms on a road trip? Does the whole team and all the athletes then have to quarantine in the hotel?
So if someone starts to have symptoms, one of the first things we're doing is each conference school has shared information on where we can go get someone tested while we're on the road. So we can take them quickly to get tested to find out where we are. We will do contact tracing very quickly while we're on the road. There'll be a decision made if we can move forward with competitions or not. So there could be a postponement. However, most of our schools have said if there's someone who has symptoms, if they test positive, we will cancel the event that day. If it's negative, then we will actually move forward. But we will be looking to get them tested as quickly as possible. They would be isolated right away, and then we would get them tested, and then we make a decision on the team. However, if it is positive, we would separate the individual who's positive, and we would do contact tracing. We would send one group back on the bus who were not contacts. We'd be looking to get other transportation. So we would be splitting up our staff and trying to figure out how we would stay with the group and get them back safely, but yet not causing the entire team to be a direct contact. So we are working on the final details of that. And trust me, each one of our conference schools are working on it as well. And we're coming up with some ideas. And we have some ideas of following with a rental car and having someone drive that to every home or away event. We're talking about actually just knowing where every enterprise rentals facility is in case we need to get that, as well as bus companies, knowing where the other bus companies are that we could reach out to bring half of our team home if one half needs to come, the other half. So we have been checking into this. We just don't have the final answers for that.
Thank you. What is the purpose of the added antigen testing, and what actions will be taken with the results from the antigen testing?
And when you say antigen, I'm hoping that you're not confusing with antibody testing, because we're not doing antibody testing. And that's where we would actually find out if you're carrying anything and you have even built up any immunity in your system. So that would be an antibody. We're not doing that. All we're doing is an antigen test, which is just a different form of testing for COVID-19. And all we're looking for is a positive test. So I just want you to know that we're only looking for that positive test. But again, someone who is testing with an antigen test is not going to test positive until they are going to be contagious and have symptoms very quickly. So we're looking at a test that's so not, well, I should, lower in sensitivity that we're not confident that you can do that once a week. So that's why the NSA and everyone has said you must do that three times a week or daily is what the recommendation if you're doing antigen testing. It's just a quicker response. We get the results back in usually 15 to 30 minutes to an hour. That's what's beneficial about the antigen test.
And just to tag on here for a moment, we had a very successful fall semester. In fact, when I've been talking to colleagues around the country, they were astonished that we were able to have 70% of our classes on campus and have our students in the classroom. And there are really two reasons for this. And first, it is because of the emphasis that we have placed on testing. That's the reason why students are being required to get tested before they come on campus, and that's the reason why we're testing students once they arrive on campus, and that is the reason why we are having randomized testing while students continue during the course of the summer. That is the reason why we have such a stringent and active policy regarding testing for all student athletes. So for those institutions who did not have that protocol, many of those institutions had to send students home. They had to go online. And that was something that we wanted to avoid to all extent possible. The other reason why we had such a successful semester is because our students protected themselves and they cared about all of their other students. And they treated themselves with empathy and they treated others with sensitivity and empathy. Those are the two major reasons. And then, as you can tell from Glenn's comments thus far, it is the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours that staff have dedicated from creating partitions to social distancing, to coming up with new policies, to train RAs. We have dedicated thousands of hours on just an individual staff basis to make sure that we have a healthy environment. And since that time, COVID has worsened. Since that time, there are new variants of COVID. There are new strains that are even more easily transferable. And so what we are doing is we are not decreasing the amount of testing that we've been doing. We are accepting the expense and the time that it takes, and we are increasing that. And so we are actually going to be increasing the amount of randomized testing that we are doing on campus, because we are determined that students will be able to come here, they will be able to attend class, and they will be able to have the highest level residential liberal arts experience possible. And so that is the reason why we're doing the additional testing, is to keep students safe and to make sure that they have a very high value educational and athletic experience. And I can't wait until we don't have to talk about this anymore.
Agreed to that. There is a request that we really try to figure out a way to let parents see their students when they're competing. And yes, we all agree to that and hope that we can get to a place where that happens. Glenn, I noticed that some athletes will be moving back to campus prior to the 15th. Does that apply to all athletes, certain residence halls? What's the deal?
No, we're only allowed to move back to student athletes who actually start competitions early. So we do have men's and women's swimming, men's and women's basketball here. They moved in on the 3rd. They were able to start practices on the 4th. And then for football, they are allowed to move in on the 8th. They're allowed to start practices on the 9th. And we're just following what the conference rule was on when we could start practices and their first competition. So that is what's happening. Everyone else comes back on the 15th. So that's just normal practice, and that's just how we are at this point in time. While I have the floor, Jamie, I do want to stand corrected. I have a great staff. My associate director, who also is my NCA compliance guy, wanted to make sure I told everyone that actually I was wrong. Again, I'm wrong. It actually is. Everyone gets another year. So even if you're a spring sport athlete, yay, you also get another year. And then also, I want to make sure that everybody knows that it is at COVID testing, all right? COVID testing at southwestern.edu if you want to send in your tests, so your results. So thank you to our athletic training staff for doing that as well. So they're staying on top of me. They don't want me to get lost here. So
That felt a little bit like, I think it was Oprah. You get an additional year. You get an additional year. Yay! That's pretty exciting. That was good news for sure. If you had 32 positives, why did the COVID website not have that posted? And it should have had it posted, and I'm not sure. I think that was 32 over the course of the semester, and those probably then showed up as increments, and maybe that's why it doesn't stick in our memories as 32, but that was the grand total. Glenn, will athletes have to pay for the randomized testing?
no, Southwestern is paying for all testing that we're doing for all of our students, student athletes, and our faculty staff. So President Trombley, the Board of Trustees, they have been outstanding in supporting our safety efforts and keeping all of our students and our staff safe. Thank you, President Trombley.
Thank you, President Trombley. Last semester, when an athlete on a team got COVID, the team had to stop playing. What's the plan moving forward for an athlete on a team testing positive in respect to continuing the season? A little bit different question there.
Yes, so now that we have competitions and we have a little bit more to play for right now, we will be doing what I said earlier, that we will pause, but we will be working as quickly and efficiently as we can to get people back on the court, on the field, wherever you play, get you back as soon as possible. Again, it's about timing. If we have a positive test on a Friday morning, it may affect a couple of games, but we will not be looking to cancel an entire season unless it really becomes such a bad situation for our team and it's at the end of the year. I mean, so if there's any way we're coming back, if we have to quarantine the entire team for 2 weeks, well, we'll come back after 2 weeks. But if there's only 2 weeks left in the season, we've lost the rest of our season. But we will be making every effort to allow everyone to finish their season any way possible.
Glenn, are we requiring PCR testing to come back to campus? And are you checking temperatures daily or before each practice and event?
And the answer is yes. We do require a PCR or equal test. We do not accept the antigen test to return back to campus. And yes, we are doing temperature checks from the day you arrive before practice every day. So we're doing symptom checks and temperatures moving forward for the entire spring season.
This will be a tag team, President Trombley and Glenn. The latest CDC guidelines shortened quarantining to 10 days instead of 14 days, right?
Right. And the CDC also at the start of the fall semester initially stated that everyone should be tested, whether they're symptomatic or asymptomatic. They then changed to stating that only symptomatic individuals should be tested. Then they switched back to their original position. So the position that I am taking is, I want your son and your daughter to be as safe as they possibly can be. That's why we are staying with 14 days. That is our goal, is that every student who comes here is going to be healthy, and they are going to be healthy when they leave. So we are being cautious. And that is something that we've discussed extensively. That's something that we have spoken with health practitioners about, epidemiologists, virologists. And so that is the course that we're planning to take. But as Glenn was saying earlier, we are going to be doing contact tracing so that we can make sure that if someone who tests positive, if they have not come into contact with someone else on the team, they may not have to spend that entire 14-day period.
Thank you very much. Dr. Trombley mentioned that students will be asked not to go off campus. Surely there will be allowances for students who don't have a meal plan, won't there?
Of course there will be. Yes. We obviously have created, or not obviously, but we have created a process where if students want to order and have food delivered on campus, that has been in place since the fall semester. What we're really asking for is that students be absolutely as cautious as they possibly can be, and to try and minimize any off-campus excursions that they might be taking. Obviously, that's not going to be true for students who already live off campus. What we want is for everyone to be very strategic, and if they do not have to go out of their apartments where they're living off campus, or if they're living on campus, to think very carefully about whether they need to go off campus. Because what we have found is, in effect, during the fall semester, we were able to really create a bubble here. Our positivity rate on campus was much, much lower than in the surrounding community. And that's exactly where we want to be during the spring semester, is to keep the positivity rate as low as possible. And one of the things that we learned was that when we saw positives, that seemed to come from, not all the time, but in many instances, when students were off campus and they then were infected off campus. That's the reason why I'm stressing this.
Thank you, Glenn. If one team has an outbreak, will it affect another sports team?
The answer is no if it's an isolated case. But we have to look at the history, guys. If you get together and have parties and you're from different sports, it could affect all the teams, right? So we got to make good decisions. But yeah, if it's an isolated situation, no, it will only affect one team. But we have to be making good decisions out there.
Glenn, would you accompany contact tracing with antigen tracing to ensure students may not have to quarantine for the full 2 weeks if they don't need to in a short season? That would be impactful.
At this point in time, our health and safety committee and the school has not looked into, have not accepted that as a possibility because there's really no, CDC has said, everyone has said out there that it is not, you cannot shorten your quarantine period from antigen testing or anything else out there. So we have not accepted that as a practice, and I don't really think it's a safe practice for us to even look at right now.
Glenn, if Georgetown ISD Stadium holds 12,000 people, how can we not figure out a way to get parent spectators there?
It's a great question. And I hear what you guys, I hear your passion, I hear your love for your sons, and I appreciate that. We have not found it, and there's two things. One, is it fair that we allow one sport to get fans and no everyone else does not? And I know that's not a great answer, but it also is one of those that, how do I get the people there and how do I manage the crowds and how do I limit people? So we have not got a plan in place that we feel allows us to safely do it. And to be quite honest with you, I've driven past Georgetown ISD during football games because I live only 4 blocks from it. And the way they sit in the stands does not meet the criteria that is stated that should be followed. So I know that Georgetown ISD did not do it well, and I can't ensure that I can do it well because my staff is half of their staff. So I hear you, and I do appreciate it, and I love your sons, and I want to be more supportive of all my student athletes and you being there. But right now we are stuck that we will not have spectators at this moment in time. So I just need to say that, but I do appreciate your love and you want to support your son and daughter. I understand that completely.
Thank you, Glenn. We are at time. I'm happy to say we got through 3/4 of the questions. We still have some. I have not scrolled to see if we have some duplicates, so hopefully you feel like your question got answered. If not, I know Grace is on the call, and hopefully we can capture these questions, and Glenn and I can divide these up and get answers out to you individually if your name is attached to the question.